What's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So in this video, I just want to share what I've been reading, watching, and listening to this week that has really been interesting for me. I'm sure a lot of you are looking for things to digest through whatever means you enjoy most. And I think a lot of you will probably appreciate some of these things that I've stumbled across this week. So first I'm going to start out with a couple of videos, and then we'll get into some other kind of content. The first one here is a TED Talk that I kind of came across on corner of Berkshire and Fairfax. And it's all about survivorship bias. It's called Missing What's Missing, okay? And there was a really interesting example given in this TED Talk about, the importance of what's not revealed to us, right? We really only get to see the kind of instances that make it, that survive, that win. Obviously, this is very true in the investing space, where when we look at past kind of performance, we try to look at how a certain approach would have done, going back 10 years, 20 years, back testing any kind of approach. What we're missing is the companies that disappeared during that time. Most of the time when we run back tests, we're missing a lot of that valuable information about what didn't work, okay? And there was a really good example given in this TED Talk. I think it was World War I, right? So there were these planes that were involved in combat, and there were a lot of planes that never made it back, right? I think it was like 50% of these planes in the war never came home. And they were trying to figure out, okay, how do we increase this percentage of planes that survive, being attacked? And so what they did was they looked for the bullet holes in the planes that actually survived, right? The planes that came back. And they made these kind of maps of where the bullet holes were. And, at first thought, they were like, well, we should put the armor where these bullet holes are. Now, they wanted to add armor to these planes. That was the idea, to try to get the percentage of them that came back higher, right? Improve the survivors. And so the first thought was, well, why don't we just put the armor? You couldn't cover the whole plane with armor, right? Because then it would be too heavy. You had to be very selective about where you put the armor to protect these planes. And the idea was, well, why don't we put them over the bullet holes, right? That's where the planes are getting shot, right? But if you think about it, where these bullet holes are is where the plane could get shot and still make it back. So those weren't the places that needed to be protected. Presumably, it was the planes that were getting hit where these bullet holes weren't in the surviving planes that were the spots that were causing these planes to get destroyed effectively. So what they did was they put the armor where the bullet holes weren't, okay? And I just thought that was a fascinating example of, what we can learn from, companies in the investing space, businesses that don't make it. I'm not quite sure how to apply this to investing yet, but I just thought it was fascinating, and it's really gotten me thinking about, how do we not only learn from the winners, right? The Amazons, the Costcos, the brilliant companies, the unicorns, effectively, but how do we improve our investment process from the companies that didn't make it? And it really reminds me of something that Charlie Munger tries to do, which is, he attributes a lot of his success not to being brilliant, right, but to not being stupid. And I think there's a lot we can learn about these businesses that didn't survive in terms of how not to invest in stupid ways. So that was really interesting. I'm going to link to this in the description. It's a fascinating 17-minute watch on survivorship bias. Now the next one, this is also something I found in corner of Berkshire and Fairfax, Roaring Kitty. You guys may not have heard of Roaring Kitty, but you've probably heard of deep effing value. Okay? Deep effing value is really the guy who was behind the whole Reddit, buying of GameStop and, similar stocks. So I think this is the guy. This is the guy who kind of led that whole movement on Reddit, Roaring Kitty. And it's a pretty interesting video. He kind of lays out his investment style. You might glean some things from this. It was certainly, I found it interesting. So I'm going to link to this as well. And, it might be worthwhile to dig through some of his other content in here. Unfortunately, it sounds like he's under investigation. I guess he was working for, a company kind of in the investment arena when he was making these videos, and there's some potential issues with that. So I'm hoping he makes it out okay from that scrutiny. But here you go, guys. Deep effing value. He's got a YouTube channel. The third video, it's not just a video, it's a podcast, the All In podcast. Now, this thing has just blown up over the last week. This video really just, skyrocketed them in the charts. I think it's the 11th most popular podcast in the world right now. But I get why. These are four very smart guys who are, talking about issues that are happening in the world today, kind of real-time issues. And this one gets a little bit heated because Jason Calacanis, who's one of the four, I believe he's actually the one who started the podcast, kind of led the charge to get this thing up and running, is an investor in Robinhood. And Chamath, many of you know Chamath Palihapitiya, was very angry, very frustrated with how Robinhood was, basically behaving in response to what was happening with GameStop. So it was a really interesting conversation between these four. And I would highly recommend subscribing to this. I've subscribed via YouTube, but I'm sure, there's any way that you get your podcasts, you can find this one, the All In podcast, very high quality. Next resource. So Chris Meyer, author of 100 Baggers, which is, probably in my top 10 investing books. It's kind of a deep dive on stocks that returned 100 to 1 over the last 50 so years. I think it was a study that was done between like 1964 and 2014. And he puts out a blog, right? He probably posts maybe once a week, something like that. And I find his posts very thoughtful. And this week was no exception. So he posted just yesterday on the Lindy effect. And the Lindy effect is essentially, it's a simple theory. It says how long an idea or technology may last correlates with how long it has already lasted. Okay, very simple concept. Old things, by virtue of being old, stand a better chance to get older still than newer things. And, he goes into these Swedish compounders, right? Which is really interesting. They're all in Sweden, these old companies that have just been chugging along for decades. And he goes into kind of some of the similarities between these companies. The return on assets, return on equity, return on capital employed. He shows the 10-year charts for them. They're all very impressive. So yeah, it's an interesting read. And, with Pabrai having the whole shift just in the last year away from buying dollars for 50 cents towards finding these long-term compounders. And of course, Pabrai's a cheapskate, so he's not going to pay up for the long-term compounders. His approach has really been, all right, I want to look in kind of corners of the market where there aren't a lot of other investors looking, whether it's, warehouse companies in Turkey or South Korea, India is a place he's been pretty active. Basically, these markets where there's, not kind of this dense concentration of investors who are turning over every stone. And so compounding is on a lot of people's minds right now, with Pabrai kind of changing his whole focus around investing. And so, kudos to Chris Meyer for tapping into that, tailwind in the industry right now, and really providing some value here on, exploring these very old companies in a time where everyone is really focused on the startups, right? The IPOs, the SPACs. This is kind of taking us back to a more tried and true way of investing, at least from a value perspective. So just a very thought-provoking post from Chris Meyer. And you can sign up for his blog, and then you'll get these automatically each week to your email. Highly recommend. The next one is, the infamous or famous, however you want to look at it, interview between Elon Musk. Not interview, more of an interrogation is how I framed it in my video a couple days ago, of Vlad Tenev, who is the co-CEO of Robinhood. And I'm not going to go into that. I already went into this exchange in a different video. But the thing I find interesting here is that this took place on an app called Clubhouse. Okay. Now, I had never heard of Clubhouse. Perhaps I'm behind the times. But I also noticed Gary Vee, who is, serial entrepreneur. He's been doing a lot more on Clubhouse recently. And basically what he said about Clubhouse is, whether or not the platform turns into the next, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, it's hot right now. Okay. There's a lot of attention on Clubhouse right now. And Gary Vee is all about attention arbitrage, right? So he wants to go where, you can put out content and get, a lot more eyeballs on that content than other platforms, okay? Attention arbitrage. And he sees Clubhouse as a pretty strong attention arbitrage play right now. It's still very early in the evolution of Clubhouse. And so I recently got onto the app. It's invite only. It's really an audio only platform that's live. Okay. So that's kind of what differentiates it from other platforms. It's these, live audio only hangouts where people are exploring different topics. So I was able to get in, and I have one extra invite. So the first person who leaves me a comment saying, hey, I want to get into Clubhouse, let me in, I will invite you. I will use my one invite. I already have an invite reserved for Investing with Tom, but I have one extra one. So let me know in the comments if you are interested in Clubhouse. It's kind of the hot, social place to be right now. So anyway, guys, this is a pretty interesting show. It's mostly Elon Musk kind of going down the different rabbit holes. But the last 15 minutes is kind of this exchange between Elon Musk and Vlad Tenev. And it was pretty interesting. I recommend it if you haven't listened to it yet. And then just some books that I've been listening to and then ordered recently, and I'm excited to read. So, I'm a big fan of Audible. Usually my approach on Audible is, listen to a book. If I really like it, I'll get the physical copy and I'll kind of scribble notes all over it. So these are kind of just entering my funnel through Audible at the moment. And I posted this on Twitter earlier today. How to fail at almost everything and still win big. Kind of the story of my life. So this is the creator of the Dilbert comics, okay, the Dilbert cartoons, however you want to call them. and it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. It's entertaining, really entertaining, and there's some deep wisdom in kind of the different scenarios that he plays out throughout this book. So I'm really enjoying that one. Mastering the Market Cycle by Howard Marks. Howard Marks' previous book, which is The Most Important Thing, is probably one of my top 5 books related to investing. And I'm a little behind on this one. This one has been out for a while, and I just decided, hey, I should give this one a shot because it's a pretty interesting time right now in the market cycle. Certainly feels pretty frothy out there, guys. So I'm just hoping to pick up a few nuggets from Howard Marks in terms of how to think about risk based on where we are, where we likely are in the market cycle, which from my perspective is pretty close to the top. That's kind of where I'm at around that. So, and I've started listening to this one. I'm definitely enjoying it so far. And the last one I want to talk about, Security Analysis, the 6th edition. So I searched for this on Audible a couple of years ago. And of course, it didn't turn up. I thought, okay, that makes sense. Nobody's going to want to listen to Security Analysis on Audible. It's like 32 hours of, deep dive into Benjamin Graham's investment approach from, 1930s. But I have started listening to it. It is pretty dry. I joked on Twitter that, this book has now completed my bedtime routine. I can turn it on, listen to about a minute, and then I am fast asleep. So we're going to give that a shot tonight. But it's one of I think it's Warren Buffett's favorite book on investing, right? If he could only recommend one book on investing, I think it would be Security Analysis. It might be The Intelligent Investor for most people, but anyone who's deeply committed to the craft of investing, I'm guessing Buffett would probably recommend Security Analysis. So, we'll see if I can chip away at it. Hopefully I can absorb some of it as I'm falling asleep each night. So those are 3 books that I've started listening to on Audible, and I'm pretty optimistic about all 3 of them. So if you're looking for reading material, guys, check those out. And then finally, I ordered 2 physical books on Amazon, and I'm pretty excited about these as well. The first one I ordered, Killing the Market, legendary investor Robert W. Wilson. Okay. And this is one I picked up from Ian Cassell. I believe he runs some micro cap and small cap investing service. It's like a membership subscription. You pay and you kind of get, you get into his club. You get his investing ideas. He runs that platform, and I just really enjoy his content. He tweets regularly. He's on LinkedIn, and he puts out just some really smart content, links to, great investors, their letters to shareholders, quality content. So I think I'm going to enjoy this one, Killing the Market. And then again on Twitter, I always see Naval quotes popping up, and so this piqued my interest. The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, A Guide to Wealth and Happiness. So I'm hoping, to tap into some deep wisdom in that book. Not strictly investing, more like life wisdom, which of course a lot of that can apply to investing as well. So those are 2 books that are on the way that I'm excited about. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share for today. Definitely get in there at Corner of Berkshire and Fairfax, guys. It's a lot of fun. I'm probably spending more time in there than any other single destination online at this point. So definitely check that out. And let me know if you guys enjoyed this. I think I might do this weekly, kind of a Tim Ferriss 5-bullet Friday, what I'm finding that's interesting over the last week. Just to kind of put all that stuff in one place each week and feel like I'm a little bit organized around that. And hopefully it's of value to you guys as well. So let me know in the comments if this was of value. And with that, I will see you all in the next video. Take care.